To tonight's special report on China's growing influence in Australia. An ABC investigation has found that businesses with Chinese connections gave Australia's major political parties more than $5.5 million between 2013 and 2015. That makes China easily the largest source of foreign-linked donations. Here's political editor Chris Uhlmann.
China's government-owned state grid is touted as the world's largest electricity utility. Hong Kong-listed Chung Kong Infrastructure is another global heavyweight. And it's easy to understand why both were shocked when the Commonwealth rejected their bids for New South Wales power distributor Ausgrid.
The national security issues are paramount.
Because both are already deeply embedded in Australia's electricity market. State Grid is the majority shareholder in Jemena, which owns half of the ACT's power distributor. Jemena is also one of 5 Victorian distributors. State Grid and Chung Kong have significant holdings in all of them. In South Australia, State Grid has a major interest in the transmitter, and Chung Kong has a 200-year lease over the distributor. The ABC has been told that defence and intelligence agencies were unanimous and unequivocal in their opposition to the Chinese bids for New South Wales power distribution. It's buttressed by a belief that the interests of the Chinese government and Chinese companies are indivisible.
If there was a question of national security with this bid and with the whole deal, it was well known long ago, and it should have been made clear to the 2 Chinese bidders long ago.
Australia's not the only country voicing concerns. The British government has hit pause on a nuclear power plant, in part because of the builder's partnership with a Chinese company.
Now, mutual trust could be at risk, China has warned, if Britain doesn't go ahead with the Hinkley Point nuclear reactor.
This is Chinese Navy. You are approaching our military alert zone.
Against the backdrop of growing tension in the East and South China Seas, as Beijing asserts what it sees as its historic ownership of the waters, the Chinese government has been rallying allies here.
The Chinese Communist Party's influence extends to many of the most popular newspapers, radio stations, and media platforms in the country, in the Chinese language.
At the end of June, Canberra-based Chinese organisations met the ambassador here. The embassy's website records that they were urged to continue to concern themselves with and serve the development of their ancestral homeland.
Many of the Chinese associations in Australia have close links with the Chinese government. It might be better to put it that way around. I'm not sure that the Chinese government itself is actively coordinating or driving what they do, but they're keen to remain on side.
In August, the ACT Federation of Chinese Associations wrote to the Prime Minister, expressing its deep concern with the Australian government, which was on the verge of contributing to the destabilisation of the sensitive South China Sea. And 3 weeks ago, about 1,500 Chinese Australians took to the streets of Melbourne to push the Chinese government's line.
The South China Sea belongs to China.
So the Australian government is in a bind. It needs China's investment, but frets about its growing domestic tentacles and its intentions.
It's not going to be easy. You've got to keep a focus on those fantastic opportunities that cooperation with China offers, and at the same time, you've got to not only, of course, protect security interests, you've got to uphold the values that underpin Australian society.
There's another kind of investment not getting sufficient attention. An examination of the last 2 years of political disclosures shows that Chinese businesses are by far the largest foreign-linked donors to both major parties. Between 2013 and 2015, they poured more than $5.5 million into party coffers, including $850,000 given to the Labor Party by a businessman whose address is shared by a centre for retired Communist Party officials. When it comes to China, Australia oscillates between its fear and its greed. It will have to find the right balance soon. Chris Uhlmann, ABC News, Canberra.